My bad. I don't have no I don't have no good old music this time. But most definitely, yo. This time we are going into Tartar. Tartaria. Now we're talking about the New World Military's Social Construction Act and America's shadow government. I don't want to go into that right now. To the America's shadow government because we're talking about America's shadow government because we're talking about the beginning of America. So we'll get into that. And the young elder is definitely somebody that I want to mess with. Okay, what they founded on Rothschild Island, Antarctica. I don't care. This is the brother right here who knew there were no laws governing slaves or legalizing slavery. Let's see what he got talking about. Because when we talk about
Now, this should really make you rethink that slavery thing.
Mark, can I follow up with you? Your point about the Southwest Territory is interesting, and that slavery, you say, was legal there. How do we know it was legal there if there is no positive law?
Well, one way we know is good law and society scholars. Lots of people had slaves.
Wait a minute. We're going to get back to what he just said, but he said in the Southwest Territories, there was not any actual legal law paperwork for you being required to be a slave, for slavery to be legal. Let's listen again.
Mark, can I follow up with you? Your point about the Southwest Territory is interesting, and that slavery, you say, was legal there. How do we know it was legal there?
First of all, this guy's a goddamn foreigner too. He's not an American. He's not indigenous. When I say American, I mean like the American white, the Anglo-Sax. He's not that.
There's no positive law.
Well, one way we know is good law and society scholars. Lots of people had...
Because the foreigners, when they come in, they always try to make it seem like slavery wasn't that bad or it wasn't real type time because it make them feel less sucky for taking advantage of things that belong to the descendants of those slaves. So by saying that your grandfather and grandmother wasn't really slaves, they was workers, means that we shouldn't have to give you money for what they worked for because they was just working. Instead of, no, we do got to give you some money because they were slaves and we made them work for that.
Slaves. Nobody challenged the legality of slavery there. It's the same way we know that having ice cream was legal in the Southwest Territories. Lots of people had it. Nobody challenged it.
What?
Remember,
I'm not sure. That. I mean, I have to think about that. I don't think that's sufficient to establish its legality. Actually,
I think once we can play lawyers' games, but we have court decisions that assume slavery is legal in the Southwest Territories. We have everybody operates on that assumption. Abraham Lincoln never says slavery was banned in the Southwest Territories. He does talk about the West, but interestingly, he never makes the claim that slavery was illegal in American territories east of the Mississippi.
And I should make clear, I speak from ignorance. I just don't know. Yeah. I don't know the matter. So these are just factual questions. There's no federal congressional legislation explicitly saying one way or the other in the Southwest Territories. And you're saying there's lots of are all the court decisions the same way that slavery is protected insofar as
not that it's the court doesn't say slavery is legal. The court operates on the assumption that this isn't something any litigant even bothers to challenge.
He said that there's no federal regulations or law. Let's listen one more time.
I should make clear, I speak from ignorance. I just don't know. Yeah. I don't know the matter. So these are just factual questions. There's no federal congressional legislation explicitly saying one way or the other in the Southwest Territories?
Well, that's crazy that there's no federal regulation that actually makes a law that says all black people are slaves or slavery is legal here in the States. You know why that's important? Because they don't even get to the Southwest until after the Louisiana Purchase. So we've already told you that in 1803, prior to 1803, they were stuck over there into the 13 colonies on the East Coast. YT folks, English, melanated Europeans, whatever. Then they start pushing this way after 1803. And now you're telling me, and then of course slavery ends in 1865. So there's barely even 60 years. And then you want to tell me that there wasn't even any legislation federally that regulated whether or not these people were slaves. And this is the panel of people in that YouTube channel that I was watching. Now, I'm not saying that they're the best people because I'm watching them about the Dred Scott decision, and they really don't know what they're talking about. But it is pretty amazing to listen to see that no federal regulations or laws were written about in the Southwest. Because what's messed up about that Southwest is they don't start counting people until they get there, right? Alabama, no counts in 1790, 1800, 1810. Then they start counting people, but the number tremendously goes up like crazy. And I've showed you this before. Alabama shows from 41,000 and in 10 years to 117,000, almost 3 times, and then to 253,000 to 364,000. Same thing in Louisiana, barely counted people in 1730, 11,000, 40,000, 80,000, 190.
There's one fatal flaw in every lighter, and nobody talks about it. So we built one that fixes it.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel of A Buried Century. I'm your host. I thought I'd make a brief introduction video and tell you a little bit about the face behind the channel. So yeah, this is me. Hi. First off, I want to say thanks for your support. Thanks for watching my videos. I'm
harvested and erased from history, and the establishment doesn't want you to,
so to speak. Also, make sure to check out my other channels. I'm gonna link them in the description. People are passing behind me. Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate all your support again. So yeah, make sure to leave a like,
the sheer size. These aren't natural rock formations. They're the remains of trees so massive that they dwarf the tallest redwoods we have today. Trees that reach miles into the sky, trees that were systematically harvested and erased from history, and the establishment doesn't want you to know about it. Let's start with the most obvious example. Devil's Tower in Wyoming. You've probably seen pictures of it, a massive rock formation rising 867 feet above the surrounding terrain. The official story is that it's an igneous intrusion, molten rock that pushed up through sedimentary layers, cooled, and then was exposed as softer rock around it eroded away. That's what the textbook. In 1899, a man who had spent 30 years studying the electrical and mechanical systems embedded in buildings that were supposedly built without electricity sat down to write a technical report. The report would have described in engineering language what he had found inside structures that official history said could not contain what he was documenting. He was told not to publish it. The report disappeared. The man retired shortly afterward. And what he had found continued to sit inside those buildings, unexplained, for the next 120 years. Before we dive in, comment where in the world...
Yo, why the fuck all of a sudden 120 years is when everything is coming out? This is the other thing, yo. AI is here. Now, the other guy, this is not the guy that I know. The guy that I really listen to, which we should find again, something Buster or Booster, he always says that he does not use AI pictures. So some of these things, like, I'm afraid that what if they are AI and people they trying to confuse the minds of Americans to make them go against their government. But for real, it's not going to make you go against your government. It's going to make you learn the life skills so that way you can do this stuff, which is really all we need to remember. We just need to remember that we have the power. You feel me? The Bible tells you that, but it's a sword and a shield at the same time. And depending on how you holding it, you could be stabbing yourself or you could be blocking your blessings.
World you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The story of free energy and suppressed technology is one of the oldest narratives in the alternative history community, and it has been so thoroughly abused by fraudsters and wishful thinkers over the past century that serious researchers hesitate to engage with it. That hesitation is understandable, but it has produced a situation in which a genuinely anomalous body of physical and documentary evidence has been left unexamined by anyone with the methodological discipline to examine it carefully. What this account attempts to do is different. It is not going to claim that Nikola Tesla discovered free energy and that J.P. Morgan suppressed it to protect his utility investments, though that story contains elements that are historically documented and worth taking seriously.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation.
It is going to document what is physically present in certain buildings that predate the electrical grid, describe what engineers who have examined those buildings have found and said, may trace the economic history of why suppression of certain technologies would have been financially rational for the people in a position to suppress them, and let you draw your own conclusions from a body of evidence that the mainstream account has not adequately addressed. The category of buildings that Tartaria researchers and revisionist historians have focused on most intensely is the large civic and commercial structures built in American and European cities between approximately 1850 and 1900. Train stations, courthouses, city halls, exhibition halls, hospitals, and university buildings from this period share a set of architectural and physical characteristics that do not fit neatly into the conventional account of how buildings from that era were designed and constructed. The specific characteristics that have attracted attention include the following. First, the buildings are generally of a construction quality that exceeds what the documented budgets of the period could have produced using the labor and material costs that historical records show. Second, the buildings contain internal structural features, specifically certain configurations of metal components, duct systems, and embedded conductive elements that serve no obvious architectural or structural purpose under the standard interpretation of the building's function. Third, the buildings frequently have basement and sub-basement levels that are more extensive, more carefully constructed, and more elaborately equipped than their stated functions as storage or mechanical rooms would require. Fourth, many of these buildings were lit, heated, and otherwise operational in ways that the standard account attributes to conventional gas lighting and steam heating, but that the physical evidence inside the buildings is increasingly difficult to reconcile with those explanations. This last point is the one that brings us to the engineer whose story frames this account. The identity of the engineer is not certain. The figure who appears in the documentary trail is a composite drawn from several sources, including the professional journals of the period, the correspondence files of certain engineering societies, and the personnel records of a number of firms that were involved in the renovation and maintenance of large civic buildings in the northeastern United States in the 1890s. What the composite figure represents is a class of working engineers who had direct physical access to the interiors of these buildings and whose professional writings, in the cases where those writings survive, contain observations that do not fit the standard account. The most specific documentary trail involves a man described in a 1903 memorial notice in the Journal of the American Society of Civil Engineers as one of the most technically accomplished investigators of building systems of his generation, who retired from practice in 1900 after a period of ill health, and whose principal work on the electrical and mechanical systems of pre-grid structures was never published in complete form. The memorial notice describes the unpublished work as a comprehensive technical survey of embedded conductive systems in civic buildings of the pre-electrical era, and notes with some delicacy that the work was not brought to completion for reasons unrelated to its technical merit. That phrase, reasons unrelated to its technical merit, is doing a great deal of work in a memorial notice published by a professional society whose members would have understood exactly what it meant. In the professional culture of late 19th century engineering, that language described a situation in which external pressure, specifically commercial or political pressure, had prevented the publication of work that would otherwise have been publishable on its merits. The question is what that pressure was protecting. To understand why the suppression of technical information about pre-grid building systems would have been economically rational in 1899, you need to understand what was happening in the American electrical.
Wait, so here is the thing. Here's the thing. What's up? Who's in here? So back then, when they had the old buildings, so not only did when the car companies came in and they took all the railroads and broke all the railroads down, right? That was the one thing. Not only did that happen, but they also realized the monopoly that they can get off of building their own stuff with all of this wood. Because, like, I'm trying to think, like, where the fuck did all this wood come from? All the wood came from when they knocked down all them big ass trees. That's why now they're not building with wood like that, because they don't got the surplus of lumber like they did before, when they was just knocking down the big trees. Now again, when they knocked down the big trees, that took oxygen, that changed the oxygen, that changed the air. And dude, you feel me? So that's why they say people were smaller. If you believe in the giants and stuff like that, you know, people could do different things because they had different elements in their body from the oxygen. Instead of it just being the H2O, it could have been H2 fucking bumblebee. You feel me? So, I don't know.
Industry at that moment. 1899 is 3 years after the Niagara Falls Power Station began transmitting alternating current electricity to Buffalo, New York, using the Tesla Westinghouse system. It is the year that General Electric and Westinghouse are in the final stages of a brutal commercial competition to establish their respective systems as the American standard for electrical power distribution. It is the year that J.P. Morgan's financial interests are consolidating control over the electrical utility infrastructure that will become the foundation of the modern power grid. The financial stakes in this consolidation cannot be overstated. The decision about how electricity would be distributed through wires to individual subscribers who paid a metered rate versus through some alternative means that might be less amenable to metering and billing was a decision worth billions of dollars in present value terms. A power distribution system that could not be metered, could not be billed on a usage basis, and could not be controlled through a network of centrally managed infrastructure would be catastrophically threatening to the business model that J.P. Morgan and the utility interests were in the process of building. Nikola Tesla knew this. His later work on wireless power transmission, and specifically on the Wardenclyffe Tower project that Morgan initially funded and then withdrew funding from, was premised on the possibility of transmitting electrical power through the earth and atmosphere without wires. When Morgan understood what Tesla was actually building at Wardenclyffe, specifically that it could transmit power without metering capability, he withdrew funding and used his influence to prevent Tesla from obtaining alternative financing. This is documented. This is not speculation. Morgan's letters are in the Morgan Library. Tesla's correspondence is in the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. The sequence of events is clear. What is less clear, and what the Tartaria framework proposes, is that Morgan was not simply suppressing a new technology, he was suppressing the rediscovery of an old one. The technical claims at the center of the revisionist history of building power systems are specific and, in some cases, testable. The claim is not that ancient civilizations had electrical generators identical to modern ones. The claim is that certain physical phenomena, specifically the piezoelectric effect, the thermoelectric effect, and the potential for resonant energy transfer through structured conductive materials, were understood and deliberately exploited in the construction of large civic buildings during a period that is now described as pre-electrical. The piezoelectric effect is real and well understood. Certain crystalline materials, including quartz, tourmaline, and Rochelle salt, produce an electrical charge when subjected to.
Which is why these things were important. Diamonds. See, somebody had a diamond in their pocket when they was in a crazy house. You will know them crazy house people. And they knew that they was important. Somebody said, oh, yeah, it's something that's to put on a ring. But see, back then, all of that gold, diamond, copper, it all was a key to get into some of these places, to listen to some of the things. If you go into there with somebody with gold, it's going to have a different frequency. If you go in there with somebody with copper, it's going to have a different frequency. And don't forget, people, they said that they went there to listen. What did they go there to listen to? Somebody saying like, oh, it was a stage and they would have music. No, they didn't say that they went there to watch. She said we went there to listen. Go back to that old live that I did like 2 lives ago.
To mechanical pressure. The effect works in reverse as well. Apply an electrical field and the material deforms mechanically. This is how quartz oscillators work in modern electronics. The effect was formally documented by Pierre and Jacques Curie in 1880, but the phenomenon was known empirically through observation of the electrical properties of certain minerals much earlier. The thermoelectric effect, similarly, is real and well understood. When two different conductive materials are joined at 2 points and those junctions are maintained at different temperatures, a voltage is produced. This is the Seebeck effect, documented in 1821. The reverse, the Peltier effect, involves the production of a temperature difference by applying a voltage. Both effects are used in modern engineering applications from thermocouples to solid-state cooling devices. The revisionist claim is that these effects, in combination with architectural features designed to maximize them, could produce usable quantities of electrical energy from the thermal gradients and mechanical stresses that large masonry buildings experience as a normal consequence of their construction and operation. Effects are used in modern engineering applications from thermocouples.
So what I just heard was that there's plenty different ways. They just said like all of these different ways that conduct electricity, right? You can use the diamond method, but then they said that it was also other diamond methods and all these different joints. But some of them, they do use them, but they'll use them in something like, let's say, the damn squishy thing that when you hit it, it start getting hot or getting cold. Like they'll hide it in little devices like that, the techniques, but don't tell you that if you really just use that in the right way in your house, it could heat your whole house up, heat your room up. You wouldn't have to walk around with all of these layers of clothes on, because you could just wear a nice big rug. These throw rugs, no, they was what people would just wear outside with these wait, I'm going crazy. That's a whole nother different level once we start getting into more of the Lenapes and how slaves or anybody could walk around with no shoes in the wintertime in America. You feel me? How they made a lot of the slaves the Indians look like they was just having their butt cheeks up, even in the wintertime.
To solid-state cooling devices. The revisionist claim is that these effects, in combination with architectural features...
When really what they would do is they will go into the mountains, they will go down south. You feel me? That's why the birds migrating was so important. They would just follow the birds, follow the North Star, walk away from the North Star. That's how they know they get their way home. Remember the other guy said that we would go to town and some of us wouldn't make it back. Why wouldn't they make it back? Because they got caught up by the damn slave raiders. They got caught up by the police. They got caught up by the people. And once they told them who they was and they said, oh, we got a crazy one. We got one that knows too much. Somebody tricked him while he walked down. Hey, come here. What's up? Hey, you know what this is? Yeah, that's a magic wand. Good. If he would have said, yeah, that's a stick, bye, walk, he would have made it home. But he was like, oh, yeah, I know, that's a magic wand. Bop. Not going to make it home. Take him and look in his head and everything. So that's what I think they met when the indigenous from Russia, them Siberians or whatever, from Russia said that, and again, I don't know, hold up.
Features designed to maximize them could produce usable quantities of electrical energy from the thermal gradients and mechanical stresses that large masonry buildings experience.
Oh, I know what I was about to say. Okay, so wait a minute. I'm thinking that the Siberians that came here was already switched over from Russia. So they already got rid of the darker one, natives, indigenous people, and they moved them in, and they was mixing, matching, and learning from them. They learned enough native type time to come over here and take over these natives. But I don't know about them speaking Russian. What's going on right now? The last engineer who knew how the old buildings was powered, what he wasn't allowed to publish.
As a normal consequence of their construction and operation. The thermal mass of a large stone building produces significant temperature gradients between its interior and exterior surfaces, between its basement and its roof, and between different sections at different times of day and season. These gradients, if properly harvested through embedded thermoelectric elements, could produce continuous low-voltage electrical output. Whether this output would be sufficient to power the kinds of lighting and mechanical systems that these buildings reportedly used is the technical question that the engineer whose suppressed report we are discussing was apparently in the process of answering when he was told to stop. In multiple large civic buildings of the 1860 to 1900 period, renovation work has revealed embedded copper elements, specifically continuous copper sheeting or heavy gauge copper wire, installed in positions within the wall and floor construction that serve no obvious structural purpose.
What if you could claim a stake on what's said to be the biggest
I wonder if
IPO ever, starting with just $500?
The copper is free.
See, they copper is something crazy because motherfuckers be still in copper. But I don't know if they still in the copper because they people like go in like that's changing the people like, or they just want money. I don't know why the fuck they still in the copper. But make sure y'all wear copper. Where my copper at? I got some copper over here. Shit. Helicopter.
Frequently installed in configurations that maximize contact with masonry materials that have significant calcium carbonate content, specifically limestone and marble. Calcium carbonate is not a piezoelectric material, but it is a moderately good dielectric, and its combination with copper in certain configurations produces capacitive structures that can store and release electrical charge. The basement levels of many of these buildings contain what appear to be large-scale versions of the same kind of embedded metal structures found in the walls, combined with configurations of pipes and ducting that are positioned relative to the building's thermal mass in ways that would optimize their function as thermoelectric elements. Several buildings have been found to contain what renovation engineers have described as essentially large-scale thermocouple arrays, embedded in the building's basement structure, connected through the building's walls to systems in the upper floors by continuous conductive pathways. The routing of these embedded conductive systems through the buildings follows the same logic that modern electrical wiring follows, with distribution from a central point in the basement or sub-basement to multiple points throughout the building. This routing is not visible in the original architectural drawings of the buildings, which show conventional structural elements in the positions where the conductive systems are actually found. The drawings were either prepared without knowledge of the embedded systems prepared to conceal them, or altered after the fact. Tesla himself provides the most documented individual case of this dynamic. His public statements about the possibility of wireless power transmission, made throughout the 1890s, were received with initial enthusiasm by the scientific press and with immediate alarm by the utility investors who were building the wired grid. Morgan's withdrawal of funding from Wardenclyffe in 1903 and his subsequent...
Let me tell y'all what they did, right? They did some watered down shit again, because the fact that you not getting your electricity, all of your electricity is coming through from one place and is held into a copper wire all the way through, instead of coming through your house in certain ways, it messes with your mind. But let me tell you what they did, though. They found out, like they said, all these different ways to do it. This was the cheapest way. Y'all, this was one of the cheapest ways. Easiest ways to make sure everybody has it, because you got to build things the right way, and people don't know how to build them all and work with it instead of teaching them all that. Which, once you teach them all that, then they ain't going to need you no more. At some point, they're not going to need you no more. You feel me? So instead, you give them all the cheap electricity, and then it dumbs them down even more. But if you notice, again, this is all dug down. So at some point, we was a lot closer to the earth. Trees was bigger. But was the trees bigger because right now we on top of a bunch of them? Or just because? So
subsequent use of his influence to deny Tesla access to alternative capital from other sources effectively ended Tesla's ability to demonstrate wireless transmission at commercial scale. What is less well known about Tesla's later years is that he continued to claim, in private correspondence and in occasional public statements, that the Wardenclyffe system was not a new invention, but a systematic development of principles that had been used empirically in building construction for centuries. Tesla described what he...
You know what it is? That's the electricity that they use when they're building the building. You feel me? That's the electricity that they use when they coming into town for like 3 years and building a building. And yeah, that's not what they're supposed to use every damn day.
What he called the building resonance problem, by which he meant the well-documented tendency of large masonry buildings to produce measurable electrical phenomena at their surfaces. He argued that this was not an incidental property of large stone structures, but a designed property, that the buildings he was studying had been constructed to exploit this resonance for functional purposes. Tesla did not publish these claims in any form that would allow them to be verified by the engineering community of his day. He was financially ruined and professionally marginalized by 1905, and the audience for his theoretical claims had largely evaporated. But the private correspondence showed...
And this is why, coming from Africa, Tesla is the name that they give this man, right? By him coming in saying Tesla, he letting the government know, I know what the fuck is going on. So y'all better give me a piece before I let everybody know. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I'm gonna fuck up your whole gas shit. All of the cars, like, you know, cars, we can make them run on electricity. So they didn't come in and say that we can have free electricity, but he said, "Give me, I got my own free electricity, and when I come over there, I'm gonna use it. And if you say anything about it, then I'm gonna tell everybody that they can have free electricity too. You know how much the back payment is gonna be that the government got to pay people for paying back."
Shows that he continued to believe until the end of his life that what he was working toward with Wardenclyffe was a rediscovery rather than an invention. The specific year of 1899 that this account's title references is significant beyond the general context of electrical industry consolidation. 1899 is the year of the Buffalo Pan American Exposition planning, the year that the Niagara Power transmission system demonstrated the commercial viability of long-distance alternating current transmission, and the year that several major engineering surveys of existing civic buildings were commissioned as part of urban improvement and electrification projects. The electrification of existing buildings, meaning the retrofitting of the wired electrical grid into structures that had previously used gas lighting and other conventional systems, created a specific engineering context in which the interiors of these buildings were examined systematically for the first time by electrical engineers rather than by the architects and builders who had originally constructed them.
And you know why they didn't tell them about? Because I'm going to tell you what happened. When these people came over to these other people, or humans came over, whatever, and they taught them that fire, they took that fire and they ran with it, and they hurt people with it, and they hurt themselves with it. So they didn't get taught none of the rest of this. So they had to figure out on their own. And when they did, they thought like, oh, well, we know what it is now. We don't need you. We can just teach the people some stuff. And I mean, like I say, George Washington Carver and a Tesla, they are two of the old world, meaning make something out of nothing. You got Tesla making electricity out of nothing, which again, it might have been inherited and he could have came across by mistake or whatever, but he the one. And just like the Peanut Man that invented the plant. And the plant is what all of these people is building. And that came from a eunuch. George Washington Carver was a eunuch, meaning that he didn't have no penis. They cut it off. The eunuch came and gave. We can look up eunuchs. That's a crazy ass word, but I don't even want to get into that.
These engineers, coming to the buildings with a professional framework developed for the analysis of wired electrical systems, were in a position to notice things that the building's original documentation did not explain. The suggestion that some of them did notice things, and that some of what they noticed was subsequently suppressed rather than published, is supported not only by the memorial notice described earlier, but by a pattern of references in the engineering literature of the 1900 to 1910 period to technical investigations of civic buildings that were begun but not completed, to survey projects whose final reports were apparently never submitted, and to the professional retirements of several engineers who had been active in this area of work.
Listen, we just talking about how electricity is free, how the old world was covered up, how these downtown city hall buildings had its own electricity and everything in it, how they tried to burn it all down but couldn't burn it down, how they took people, turned them into orphans, and the people that knew it was up, they put them in insane asylums. Because why would they make insane asylums for people, and insane asylums look like cathedrals and so nice? And nowadays our healthcare is crazy, but they thought to build those nice big insane asylums. I love the Tartaria rabbit hole. I'm very familiar, right? You feel me? But this is what I'm bringing it into, where I'm coming from with it. Because right now with our schools, they closing 20 of our schools. So in the past live, what I did was I went over how they started the school system and how they said, stop teaching land and how to become your own wealth and teach getting a job is good, basically. Teach them. And at the time, it was teach them the trades. Now they took the trades out. Just teach them going to college is good. Yes, the orphan train, those babies were clones. Oh, clones. Cabbage Patch babies. Oh, yeah, now that part. I heard about that part. Which I could tie that into maybe like the magical, the more mystical part of the of basically how they was just taking people, and anybody that you see that they taking they do stuff with, they gonna be messing with their brains. Frankenstein. Boom, that's all I gotta say. There you go. Frankenstein all day. And they removed the bells from the church. Yo, so the bells, this is the thing with the bells, right? The bells kept everybody on the same wavelength. Like when you hear a bell, you all stop. Okay, we know what to do. You feel me? Plus, the bells was different in every city. So in Philly, it might be 12 o'clock, but in Delaware, it might be 12:13. So once I get over there, change my jaw. But no, I'll just look up at the sky. And since I know where the sun is at, I know what time it is here. Instead of it being one time because of all of these goddamn industries and they trying to make us work. And you feel me? And they removed the bells from the churches. The hospital had bells too. Right. The hospitals was the cathedrals, was the churches. So they made that into a sane asylum. So now you won't even want to go there because you think crazy people go there instead of crazy sick people go there to become fixed. And that's also probably why they couldn't keep their asses down. Because these people keep killing themselves. That's because you killing them in the place that they heal themselves in. Like you harming them. So yeah, it'd be crazy.
In the late 1890s. Each individual case is ambiguous. Surveys are abandoned for many reasons.
There was a one joint in Russia though. How in Russia, the indigenous, so they did the same thing with the indigenous over there. In Russia, they was like, this woman was like, yeah, or my grandmother was the last person that knew about all of how to build the buildings and everything. Yep, standardized time was an advent of train systems. Oh my gosh. I think Vanderbilt made all time the same. That's the way the curriculum was designed from the jump since the Industrial Revolution. Right. Because so, and then with the trains, so they did the same thing with the highways that they did with the trains, right? They build all these trains and over Native Americans, all that, wherever they need to build that. And then when they come in with the cars, they rip up all the damn trains. But back then, people, that's why it was like underground railroads and all that. People had their own trains.
Reasons. Engineers retire without being pushed, but the aggregate pattern is not ambiguous.
So that's why I got to bring it to
maximum
today.
interest in an examination of pre-grid building systems coincides almost precisely with the period of maximum financial pressure to establish the wired grid as the exclusive model for power distribution.
I'm the edema building up in your lower
See, you see how they trying to get me?
legs, and most compression socks can't even touch me. Let me show you what's actually.
But yeah, what should we do?
The economic history of energy distribution in the United States during the late 19th century is, from a revisionist perspective, primarily a story about metering.
Black umbrellas
The technical
were
question of
distributed.
how electricity
What?
should be generated and transmitted was always secondary to the
Wait,
financial
why was
question of
black
how it should be
umbrellas
sold.
distributed? All right, wait. Let me.
Power distribution system that could be sold by the kilowatt hour to individual subscribers, measured by a meter at each subscriber's location, and billed through a centralized utility company, was financially superior for the utility investors to any system that provided power in a way that was not metered and not billed individually. If the buildings of the mid-19th century were already using some form of embedded power generation that did not require metered utility service, then the adoption of the wired grid was not simply the introduction of a useful new technology. It was the replacement of an existing technology with a.
And that's also why they took domes off of stuff. They took copper tops off of stuff, and they was burning everything. You feel me? Because a lot of the instructions probably was written like they couldn't burn those buildings down and burn that stone, but they could burn the writings and a lot of the carvings that was written on them.
The different one that happened to be much more profitable for the people.
Because the writings and the carvings is what actually made all of the frequencies that create the electricity. Because I'm not going to go into the
people who controlled the replacement. The financial incentive to suppress information about the prior technology, and specifically to suppress technical documentation that would allow the prior technology to be understood and potentially reproduced.
This is all right. So we can come up with a curriculum. The first thing that we're going to do is land. That's the first thing that we teach. We teach land on how to cultivate it and how to buy it and how to build on it, how to know what's good, what's not. America had a wireless energy grid. No, I don't want to hear that. Old construction photos don't show buildings. They show people digging things out of the ground. Right. They always digging something up. They digging up the footer? Why they demolished every hospital built before 1900s? Ooh. America had no public schools until 1852. This is who taught the children before that. Let's see. We got to get it.
There's a school building in Cincinnati, Ohio, that shouldn't exist. The Woodward High School, completed in 1856. 4 years after Massachusetts became the first state to make school attendance compulsory, granite facade.
Oh yeah, let me tell you something. Y'all remember when England and all these places, America too, had all of these housemaids and servants? Anybody ever see Downton Abbey? So my theory when it comes to all of these servants is that these servants was either prisoners and happy to bootleg, right, brainwashed, or they were children that came from the orphan train. And just like in slavery, they showed that some of the slaves was pets to their owners, and a little kid would have a pet slave. Now this is what happened too. They would teach some of the, I was about to say pet slaves, they would teach some of the people and the orphans how to read, write, but the other curriculum would be how to dress the person, how to feed the person, how to wipe their butt, how to tell them that they nice, right? How to advise the person, right? They'll have them reading all of the news. And then the person, whoever's going to be receiving this assistant, they're going to school to learn that they are better. They're going to learn trust and land and how to, you know what I mean? They learning the monopoly. But they got this other person to help them with everything else. So now the other person don't think that they can be anything else. They think that's where they're supposed to be at. But that's why the servants and all of that stuff didn't last so long, because it only could go like 1 or 2 generations, because it came from orphans. And after a while, people want more for their child. See, when an orphan grow up and they're a servant, the only thing they're gonna 80% of them is just gonna want their child to be a good servant too. A house nigga, they're gonna want their child to be a house nigga. Instead of being free, they're gonna work more on them becoming house than they is becoming free. Because then again, if they free, then they're gonna leave them. And they rather misery loves company.
Vaulted interior halls. A central tower visible from 3 miles. Cost $180,000 in 1856 dollars, roughly $6.5 million today. The city of Cincinnati built it without a compulsory education law, without a standardized curriculum, without a state board of education that had existed for more than a decade.
If you're not making $158,000 per year, but you'd like to, I strongly encourage you to start a simple bookkeeping business.
In fact, the city of Cincinnati built it 4 years after the concept of mandatory public schooling had been legally established anywhere in America. That was 1852, the year Massachusetts passed the first compulsory attendance law in the United States. Before that, the official story is simple. Children were educated at home, by churches, by private tutors, or not at all. Public education was a 19th century invention, a progressive reform that brought literacy and opportunity to the masses. But the literacy rates don't match that story, and neither do the buildings. Let me show you what I mean. In 1840, 12 years before the first compulsory attendance law, the federal census recorded literacy rates across the United States. In the northern states, male literacy stood at approximately 91%, female literacy at 88%. In New England, the figures were higher. Vermont recorded 96% male literacy. Connecticut recorded 94%. These are not the numbers of a population being educated for the first time. These are the numbers of a population that had been educated for generations by a system that the official history has never fully accounted for. The textbooks say public schooling created American literacy, but American literacy existed before public schooling, and in some measurable categories, it was higher before the standardized system than after it. In 1800,
Well, I don't believe that. I believe that the smart people were smart enough to put their names on the damn list. The dumb people that wasn't teaching their kids was too damn dumb to put their names on the list. They couldn't read or write to put their names on the list, so they didn't get hit up in the census. The answer was hiding in the bushes somewhere. Say no.
Literacy rate in Massachusetts was approximately 90%. In 1900, 50 years after compulsory public education had been established, it was 94%. 4 percentage points of improvement over a century of mandatory schooling. Something was already working before 1852. The question is what? And why the people who knew chose silence, or were never asked, or were asked too late. Before we go further, I want to establish the scope of what existed before 1852. Because the official history treats pre-public education as a gap, a void, an absence that the state stepped in to fill. The physical record says otherwise. Between 1780 and 1850, the United States constructed an estimated 3,000 formal educational institutions, not one-room schoolhouses, formal institutions. Academy buildings with multiple classrooms, libraries, scientific apparatus rooms, and architectural proportions that modern school architects don't achieve. Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, founded 1778, original building still standing. Stone construction, classical proportions, a library that held 2,000 volumes before the federal government had a Library of Congress. The Albany Academy in New York, founded 1813, taught Joseph Henry, who would go on to discover electromagnetic induction. The curriculum included classical languages, advanced mathematics, natural philosophy, and moral science. In 1813, for children in a city of 10,000 people. The Western Reserve Academy in Ohio, founded 1826, 26 years before Ohio had a compulsory education law, offering a curriculum that would not look out of place in a modern university preparatory school. These were not isolated examples of elite education for wealthy families. They were part of a network, a system that operated across the country, was locally funded and locally controlled, and produced the literacy rates that the 1840 census documented. And then, between 1852 and 1918, that network was systematically replaced. Not supplemented, replaced. The people who worked inside the old system remembered. There was a generation of Americans who taught and administered in the academies and common schools before the state systems absorbed them. Many lived long enough to be interviewed in the 1920s and 1930s by researchers documenting regional educational history. Their testimonies were filed in archives. Most were never widely published. Eliza Hartwell was born in 1,841 inches of Concord, New Hampshire. She taught in the Concord Academy from 1862 to 1889, when the institution was absorbed into the new public school system. In a 1924 interview preserved at the New Hampshire Historical Society, she described the curriculum she taught. When asked what subjects she covered, she listed them without hesitation: Latin, Greek, rhetoric, natural philosophy, moral philosophy, mathematics through calculus, geography, history, and what she called practical reasoning, the ability to analyze a problem and construct an argument. The interviewer asked what age her students were. She said 12 to 16 primarily, some younger.
For the first time in modern history, college student graduates are more
over it.
When asked how her curriculum compared to what was being taught in the new public schools, she paused. Then she said the comparison was not favorable. She was not asked to elaborate. The interviewer moved on. I found this interview because I was looking for something else. tracing records of the Academy network for an article that was never published.
See,
But I couldn't stop
yeah.
thinking about that pause. And I couldn't stop thinking about what she chose not to say. George Whitmore was born in 1,848 inches, Western Pennsylvania. He attended a subscription school, a privately funded common school from age 7 to age 15, before working as a surveyor and later as a county land assessor. In a 1931 oral history archived at the Pennsylvania State Library, he described his education. He said the school met in a building that had been constructed by the community in 1831. Stone walls, a proper fireplace, a library of approximately 400 volumes that families...
On March 3, 1865, Abraham Lincoln signed two pieces of legislation into law on the same day. The first created the Freedmen's Bureau, the federal agency that would oversee the transition of 4 million people from slavery to citizenship. History remembers this one. It appears in textbooks. It has a name people recognize. The second created the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company. Congress gave it a federal charter. It authorized the bank to receive deposits from formerly enslaved people, from black soldiers who had served in the Union Army.
Again, freedmen. There was a lot of indigenous or dark-skinned Indians. They took them and made them freedmen as well. It was men that was not Indian, that was black, that was over here, that was owner already free, wasn't slaves, probably said that they had slaves because sometimes your employees be your slaves. Sometimes you would buy your wife, and now you would say that your wife is your slave on taxes, different things like that. But there was just black men free. And they tried to make it seem like, no, anybody dark-skinned was a freed slave. Instead of they could have been any of these other things. Because remember, when the English and all them people came over here, they brought black people over here too to fight on that side. So when they lost, a lot of the England people turned coded and stayed in America, or became spies. Or a lot of those black guys came over here and just blended in, but deep down didn't like us. Because we really was fighting for the freedom and they was fighting for the other side. And you know what I mean? I don't know. I ain't gonna keep going.
From anyone in the newly free black population who wanted to build something from nothing. The law specified that deposits would be held safely and returned with interest. It placed the bank under a board of 50 white trustees, philanthropists, abolitionists, men of standing. It attached the word trust to the name. It was signed into law the same day as the Freedmen's Bureau, the same day the war was functionally over, 2 days after Congress had passed the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery.
Big retailers just banned our liquor, and honestly, we're not surprised because we didn't build this thing to sit on a shelf.
A lot of
next
our
to
ancestors,
that date,
grandmom and all them, they put their money, they had their money inside the house, and that was the problem. That's why when drugs came in, it messed everything up, and when segregation came in, it messed a lot of stuff up because we had to only depend on each other, and we had our banks in the house. Segregation came, we started getting employee checks. They like, wait a minute, go to our bank and cash it from our bank. Get a bank account. Take this book. Write down everything. Start seeing, wait, how you get this money? Oh, you making money on the side doing that? They need longer hours. We need to tax that food that's coming in over there because they making baked goods off of that.
Matters. March 3rd, 1865. The same government that had just abolished slavery created on the same afternoon an institution to help the formerly enslaved build financial futures. It was, on paper, one of the most remarkable acts of institutional commitment in American history. What happened to that commitment is in the congressional record. All of it. The decisions, the names, the amounts, the dates. The record is complete. It has simply never been taught. The bank opened branches quickly. By 1870, it had 37 branches across 19 states and the District of Columbia. The branches were in the cities and towns where black populations were concentrated: New Orleans, Charleston, Nashville, Richmond, Washington. They were staffed in many cases by black clerks and cashiers, which was itself a remarkable institutional fact for 1866. The bank was, for a significant portion of the black population in the post-war South and in northern cities, the first financial institution that had ever solicited their business, ever treated their money as worth holding. The deposits came in. Soldiers who had earned $13 a month in the Union Army. Domestic workers who saved from wages that were themselves barely above nothing. Ministers, teachers, small business owners, day laborers, families who had spent their entire lives legally prohibited from owning property, depositing what they had earned since the day that prohibition ended. By 1872, the bank held deposits from approximately 61,000 individual accounts. The total value of those deposits was approximately $3.7 million, equivalent to roughly $90 million in today's dollars. The average account held about $60. $60 was not a trivial sum in 1872. $60 was weeks of wages. For the people depositing it, it was the beginning of something, a house, an education, a future that their parents had been legally forbidden to imagine. The bank published annual reports. The reports were optimistic. The Board of Trustees held meetings. The meetings were minuted. The Freedmen's Bureau endorsed the bank publicly, which was part of why ordinary depositors trusted it. The federal government's own agency for the formerly enslaved was telling them this institution was sound. What the annual reports did not describe, what the board meetings did not discuss in language that reached the depositors, was what was actually happening to their money. The original Congressional Charter of 1865 had contained a restriction. The bank could invest deposits only in United States government bonds and securities, the safest possible instruments, the investments that carried the full faith and credit.
So here we go. It's not backed in gold. It's backed in the bonds, which the bonds are some shit that they made up. The bonds is something that they said, here, we need money for guns. So take this IOU called the bond, and when the war is over and we win, we're going to pay you back this bond. Like, you're giving us $10 right now, so we're going to say that this bond is worth $10. But after, when you come back, you give us this bond, we're going to give you $20 or $12, whatever it is. I don't know. But we're going to give you you're going to get money cash back with this, probably double type time.
Credit of the federal government. This restriction was why the word trust belonged in the name. The deposits were to be held in trust, in government bonds, safe and accessible. In 1870, Congress amended the charter. The amendment authorized the bank to invest up to half of its deposits in real estate mortgages and personal loans. The language of the amendment was straightforward. The implications were not discussed publicly. The depositors were not informed that the terms under which they had trusted the institution with their savings had been quietly changed. The men who ran the bank understood the amendment as an opportunity. J. Cook and Company.
All right, so now what they about to do, usury. They said, you know what? You got some people with some money and they not doing nothing with it. So give them some loans. What's going to happen when it comes to the loans? They're going to be having to pay back forever. They're going to be in debt.
The most prominent investment.
All the shit that they're going to buy, the government is going to own that now because the bank own that now. So what they really doing is saying, we don't want to buy up this neighborhood. We don't want to walk through this neighborhood. We don't want to do the work. So let's just give them the money. They're going to go and do all the building. They're going to make the houses. They're going to make the stores. They're going to make everything popping. And then all we got to do is tell them that they owe us, or criminalize everything they do, or just get them out of there. But it start with the usury, because guilt, a real person guilt for giving something. But no, if they give you something for no money, you don't owe no money.
Banking firm in the United States, the firm that had financed the Union war effort, became the bank's fiscal agent in Washington. The bank's deposits began moving into loans to real estate developers in Washington, D.C., into loans to railroad companies, into loans to business ventures,
into loans
connected to the men who sat on the bank's board and to their associates.
It went to loans, investments. Imagine this. The loan that they doing is investing in the damn railroad company, but the railroad company just need more money so they can dig up where the black people live at to put a damn railroad through it. So if they didn't give the damn bank the money or get the loan from the bank to give to them, which was crazy how they did it, to give them back the money to hurt them fucking selves. All they doing is spending money to hurt themselves. They don't even know it. They think they getting rich. They think they doing this. And some of them may be. Some of them are. Some of them did the right thing with it. PPP loans, right?
It's Henry Cook, the brother of Jay Cook, the governor of the District of Columbia, a man with extensive Washington real estate interests, was one of the men who benefited from these loans. The congressional investigation conducted after the bank's failure would document the specific transactions. Henry Cook's connections to the loans made from Freedmen's Bank deposits are in Senate Report number 440, filed in 1874. The depositors did not know any of this. They knew the bank had a federal charter. They knew the Freedmen's Bureau had endorsed it. They knew their passbooks showed their balances. They trusted what the institution told them, which is what people do with banks. In September 1873, Jay Cook and Company failed. The firm that had financed the Civil War, the firm that was so embedded in American finance that its collapse was unimaginable, collapsed. It had overextended itself in railroad investments. Its failure triggered the Panic of 1873, the worst financial crisis in American history to that point. Banks across the country failed. Credit evaporated. The economy contracted for 5 years. The Freedmen Savings and Trust Company survived the initial panic, barely. Its deposits in railroad loans and Washington real estate were suddenly worth far less than their face value. The bank's actual assets had been impaired. But the passbook still showed the depositors' balances. The bank was still open. The clerks were still at their windows. In January 1874, the Board of Trustees did something that requires a moment to absorb fully. They appointed Frederick Douglass as the bank's new president. Frederick Douglass was 56 years old. He was the most prominent black man in America. He'd been born into slavery in Maryland, had escaped, had become the most powerful abolitionist speaker of his era, had advised Abraham Lincoln, had published 3 autobiographies, was recognized across the country and in Europe as a figure of historical significance. He was not a banker. He had no experience in finance. He had no background in institutional management of any kind. The board appointed him because his name on the letterhead would reassure depositors. This was the explicit reasoning, documented in the board's own minutes. They needed someone whose credibility would keep money in the bank while they figured out what to do about the fact that the bank was insolvent. Douglass took the appointment seriously. He came to Washington. He examined the books. What he found, he later described in his autobiography. He had been married to a corpse. The bank's assets were worth approximately half of its liabilities. The loans to Washington real estate ventures and railroad companies were not recoverable at face value. The 61,000 depositors were owed $3.7 million. The bank had, in any honest accounting, approximately half of that. Douglass spent $10,000 of his own money attempting to stabilize the institution. He lobbied Congress for a federal rescue. He held meetings with board members, with government officials, with anyone who might be able to help. He testified before congressional committees.
It's probably best that they got him to do that shit and he wasn't a banker, because the banker probably would have went to the bank people and they would have been, listen, man, just take this little bit of bread and shut up. But since he wasn't that, he couldn't fall for that trap because he didn't speak that language. He only spoke the language of equality and fixing and getting things right. So let's see if he got how it went.
He was for 3 months in early 1874, doing everything a man could do to save an institution that the men who had run it had already hollowed out. In June 1874, Douglass recommended to the board that the bank be closed. He had concluded that continuing to operate would only deepen the losses of the depositors. The bank closed on June 29, 1874. It had been open for 9 years. The congressional record of what happened next is the part of this story that almost nobody knows. On June 20th, 1874, 9 days before the bank formally closed, Congress passed legislation authorizing the closure and establishing the process by which depositors would be repaid. The legislation created a commission of 3 men to manage the bank's remaining assets and distribute what could be recovered to the depositors. It set no timeline for completion, it established no minimum recovery guarantee, and it contained a provision that the congressional debate had barely discussed. Depositors who believed they had been wronged by the bank's management could not sue the institution in federal court. Their only recourse was the commission process. The commission worked for 6 years. By 1880, it had recovered enough to pay depositors approximately 62 cents on the dollar. Then it stopped. The commission concluded its work. The remaining 38 cents on every dollar, the savings of 61,000 people, the wages of soldiers and domestic workers and ministers and teachers, the money that had been deposited in a federally chartered institution under the explicit promise of government bonds and safety, was gone. No further recovery was attempted. No additional legislation was passed. The commission closed its books. The men who had made the loans, the men who had moved depositor funds into Washington real estate and railroad investments connected to their own business interests, faced a congressional investigation. Senate Report number 440, filed in 1874, documented the specific transactions, the specific conflicts of interest, the specific decisions that had transferred depositor money into investments that served the board's associates. No criminal charges were filed. Not one. The investigation produced a report. The report documented the failures. The documentation was filed. The men named in it continued their lives. Henry Cook continued in Washington business and politics. The other board members dispersed. The institution was gone. The accountability was not. Frederick Douglass never forgave himself for the appointment. In his 1881 autobiography, Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, he wrote about the bank with a specificity that is painful to read. He described what he had found when he examined the books. He described what the appointment had been designed to accomplish, not to save the bank, but to use his name to buy time. He described having been, in his word, used. He called the Freedmen's Bank episode one of the most painful experiences of his public life. He did not blame himself for the bank's failure. The insolvency had preceded his appointment by years. He blamed himself for lending his credibility to an institution that had already betrayed the people it claimed to serve. The $10,000 he spent trying to save it, he never recovered. Now, consider what 62 cents on the dollar meant in practice for the depositors. A man who had saved $60, weeks of wages, the beginning of something, received $37.20. A family that had accumulated $200 over 9 years of careful saving received $124. The difference was not abstract. The difference was the house that was not purchased, the education that was not funded, the business that was not started. The difference compounded across generations in the way that financial losses compound, not just the money.
And that's the small way that they get you. They let you get up on the ladder, and then they start pushing. Once they see how high you can get, then they bring your ass down, and then they get a ladder much longer and say, go ahead.
But the time that had been spent building towards something that was then partially taken, and the trust in financial institutions that was damaged in a way that had its own long-term costs. The 34 branches of the Freedmen's Bank that had operated across the South were the primary financial institutions serving black communities in those cities and towns. When they closed, there was no replacement. The vacuum they left was not filled by other institutions willing to serve black depositors.
This device just keeps saving me from getting scammed when traveling. If you've ever struggled to order food, ask for directions, or just connect with locals in another country, you know how stressful language barriers can be. Most people settle for clumsy phone apps that are slow, awkward, inaccurate, and way too complicated. But here's the thing. Many travelers simply don't know a better option exists. It's called Inense, the little-known two-way instant translator. And those who've tried it swear they'll never go back to apps again. In fact, it's been called the best-kept secret in travel tech because it simply works fast, accurate, and offline, without the hassle of apps, costly subscriptions, roaming fees, or unreliable connections.
As soon as I move, then a fucking ad wanna come on, bro. It's like they see when you move. They see when you get out the way. As soon as you get away, they put a fucking ad on. I'm telling you, it's made like that. When your eyes go off, they'll do it. When you put the phone down, they'll do it because it's on shake. Like, it's crazy. Don't believe me. Believe me.
Too hard to believe? Just watch this.
Too hard to believe?
The systematic exclusion of black Americans from mainstream banking. The exclusion that would persist through redlining, through discriminatory lending, through the institutional architecture of American finance for the next century, did not begin with the Freedmen's Bank failure, but the failure removed the one institution that had been specifically chartered to address it. The racial wealth gap that researchers document today, the gap in household wealth between black and white Americans that persists across income levels and education levels and every other variable, has many causes. Historians do not reduce it to any single event, but the specific mechanism by which the Freedmen's Bank failure contributed to it is documented. 61,000 families lost a portion of their savings in 1874. The congressional record shows the decisions that caused those losses. The Senate investigation shows who benefited. The lack of criminal prosecution shows what accountability looked like for the men who made those decisions. There is one more document. It is not in the Senate investigation. It is not in the congressional record. It is in the archive of the Comptroller of the Currency, which inherited the bank's remaining records when the commission concluded its work. Among those records are the passbooks. Not all of them. Many were lost or destroyed. But several hundred original passbooks survive, the physical records that individual depositors carried to the bank's windows to record their deposits and withdrawals. The passbooks have names, they have amounts, they have dates. One passbook belongs to a woman named Polly Ann Banks. She opened her account at the Nashville branch on October 14, 1866, 16 months after emancipation, 16 months after the bank opened its doors. Her first deposit was $4. Over the next 7 years, she made 31 deposits, some as small as 50 cents, some as large as $8. By 1873, her balance was $43.12. The passbook shows no withdrawal after 1873. The bank closed before she could take her money out. The commission paid her 62 cents on the dollar, which means she received approximately $26.70 from the $43.12 she had saved over 7 years of deposits. Her passbook is in the archive. Her name is on it. The dates of her deposits are recorded in the careful handwriting of a Nashville bank clerk. 31 deposits over 7 years, 50 cents at a time, the beginning of something. The passbook ends in 1873. The rest of it is blank. There is a detail in the congressional record of the 1874 closure debate that I have not been able to put down since I found it. During the floor debate on the closure legislation, the debate in which the provision barring depositor lawsuits was included, a senator from Ohio named Alan Thurman rose to speak. He acknowledged that the depositors had been wronged. He acknowledged that the bank had been mismanaged. He acknowledged that the men responsible had used depositor funds for their own benefit. And then he said that the depositors, being people of limited means and limited knowledge of financial affairs, were unlikely to prevail in court even if they were permitted to sue. He offered this as a reason to bar the lawsuits rather than allow them. The limitation of the depositors was the justification for removing their legal recourse. That argument is in the congressional record. The date is June 1874. The senator's name is Alan Thurman. The provision passed. The 61,000 depositors of the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company were told by the Congress of the United States that their limited means and limited knowledge of financial affairs meant that the door to the courthouse should be closed to them. The passbooks are in the archive. The congressional record.
That's just like saying, okay, well, then I guess you don't need a lawyer.
Is in the archive. The Senate investigation naming the men who benefited is in the archive. Pollyann Banks deposited 50 cents.
If you dumb enough to give us your money, then you dumb enough for us not to give you back the money. You're not smart enough for us to even go back and forth with you because we already beat you. It's just going to waste our time and money from going and take other people's time and money. Dang.
On October 14th, 1866, and the last entry in her passbook is 1873, and the rest of the pages are blank. The documents were always there. What was missing was someone willing to read them. The Freedmen's Bank records were digitized by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the 1990s and made available through Family Search. Genealogists use them today to trace family histories. They contain 480,000 names, not just depositors, but the family members, relatives, and references each depositor listed when they opened their account. It is one of the most complete demographic records of the Black American population in the immediate post-emancipation.
That's also how they follow motherfuckers. See, it came Latter-day Saints gave it to you then. But see, what a lot of people was doing, bounty hunters, really, listen, this is who you got to go get because this is somebody's grandson. And when we go for their land, we can't have nobody that know about it or can come up and say that it's theirs. So a lot of the times they was over there snatching and jacking people. The whole get the kid when they born thing. Okay, we're not talking about that.
Period that exists anywhere. The men who ran the bank created those records because they needed to know who the money belonged to. The money is gone. The names remain. If your family has roots in the American South between 1865 and 1874, someone in your family tree may be in those records. The archive is free. The search takes 5 minutes. What you find when you look is entirely up to what your family carried and what the bank took and what the commission returned and what the blank pages at the end of the passbook mean. Subscribe, because next week we open another file.
All right, that's enough of that one. I want to go to let me see if my homie doing something. But yeah, now that is out of control. Members only. I don't care about the Rothschilds. Let me see if I can find the homie Samuel C. All you need. What you mean? Who are these people talking about? The truth about fireplaces. What is the truth about fireplaces? Should we go there? Because I done seen that twice, and I'm thinking that I kind of want to. Police activity in Kensington. Should we look up Philly? Oh, here you go. This is the bull. He be having a lot.
My coworkers thought I'd get fired for eating these gummies. Funny how I became the most productive person in the office. Just because I...
And that's fine. What up, Cash?
Here we go.
So it's going to take a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and get started on this particular subject. And those people can always watch the playback. But the Freedmen's Journal. So I was, okay, let me just read the first Freedmen's Journal. It can't be too bad, right? Automatically, I already see something. And if you don't see it, there it goes. Automatically, I was like, Phyllis Wheatley, pushing propaganda early on the first page of the Freedmen's Journal, are we? But then I was like, wait a minute, Ethiopia show up. I was like, okay. Am I tripping? Am I tripping? But then, then I noticed another piece of something. What did I see? Let's see if I highlighted it. Hold up. We got the Phyllis Wheatley thing. Oh yeah. That's something about Frederick Douglass. We're gonna get to it. That was something else about Africa. There was like a couple of things about Africa. That's something about spending money. Oh, in African Christian. That's in African Christian. First page, not episode.
Subscription.
Print, whatever. Of the motherfucking newspaper of the Freedmen's Journal. And this is what they're propagating to you on the first page. So I was like, okay. All right. So let's just read a couple of these things. Okay. As people are coming up in here. What's up, everybody? What's up, Royal? Oh, yeah, first issue. Yeah, there we go. So here we are right here. So
but then we're gonna move on.
I was like, let me read a little bit of this. Now you got the Phyllis Wheatley story, right? If you don't know, the Phyllis Wheatley story is already a bunch of bull. I've already done many videos on it, right? But the first sentence is Phyllis Wheatley was a native from Africa. So just think about it. In the Freedmen's Journal, the first sentence period is Phyllis Wheatley is from Africa. Now it didn't tell you was from Africa, but Phyllis Wheatley was. So they don't purposely put it in there and just say you are, but they're gonna suggest the hell out of it, right? Whom whence was stolen by slave catchers and brought to America in the year 1761. She was then between 7 and 8 years old. I'm not even going to read the whole thing. The whole Phyllis Wheatley story is a bunch of BS. You said zoom out. What up, International House of Pseudo?
He got to be careful because there is a lot of women out there that, like, when I got into the whole being a tour guide, especially this Black African American tour guide thing, Phyllis Wheatley is one of the first poems, the first things that they put in my face. They're like, yo, look at this, read this, this is it. And I'm just like, okay. So, yes, Phyllis Wheatley is really ingrained in our souls, y'all. So, just wanted to say that.
So yeah. So just off top, the first page, first issue of the Freedmen's Journal that I found is pushing an Africa story already. First sentence. Okay.
All right, let's speak more.
And why is that important? Because this is around the time where they're trying to Africanize you. This is like the beginning stages, or I would say late beginning stages, because they tried it with the Dred Scott case, and they were trying prior to that to try to somewhat call you African, but mostly in these 1800s, not really in the 1700s like that. Mostly the end of shit is like Negro, and even in the early 1800s, in most cases, it was Negro. The African language comes in more mid 1800s, maybe 1830, 40. All right. So I'm not surprised. I wasn't surprised when I saw it. So let's go to another little, other than the little Phyllis Wheatley story that pissed me off. I was like, okay. Oh, I wanted to figure out who the hell made this? Who was in charge of the Freedmen's Journal? It was something called the American Tract Society. I haven't done my whole investigation on the American Tract Society. I didn't really stay on this subject forever, but it was founded in 1825 in New York City. The American Tract Society is a non-denominational organization dedicated to publishing and distributing Christian literature, including over 10 billion tracts, books, and Bibles. So one thing you can mostly get out of it is it's a heavily Christian organization that's pushing Black propaganda and Africanizing us. And I'm not surprised by that, because it was the Christian church, the Church of England Christian church, that first started baptizing us and Christianizing us and trying to mix us in with the first Negroes who were here from Europe, and putting Indian and Negro together in schools, which I can pull up, in fact, why not pull the goddamn thing up? I say why not, but hell, I can't think of, you know what? Negro. It should pull it up just with that. Pretty easy.
Guys, if you're still balding in 2026, what are you doing? There's an easy solution. It doesn't cost tens of thousands.
Let me find it for you.
And who is she?
But yeah, so first they try to put us together, which I believe and have believed for some time that was the case all along. First mix them in with the European blacks and get them confused, then start Africanize them, get them even more confused. I don't think that they knew it from the very beginning. I think they've been kind of planning it as they go, and I say that because they make a lot of they make a lot of mistakes around. What up, crew? What up, Cypherborn? Let me just check my YouTube side over here. My bad for the YouTube Twitter folks. Oh, I don't even have the chat up over there. It says, can you use the act to reorganize Black Americans back into our own tribes to create newly formed ones? I don't care too much about that Africa slave BS. Now, I don't think you can use any previous acts. If anything, we would be tying ourselves likely back to treaties. You can't trust a nigga that reads 1,700 books and smokes weed. Okay. But we can trust you drinking natural light, tall boys on your reservation land, poured in a bitch. Yeah. The last thing we're going to do is listen to those folks, right? I will happily take care of myself with my vices as I educate my people about the fuckery you guys have been up to. Yeah. I had to go there with it. Say, you just got on. Yeah, I kind of just got started. I haven't even gone. So the main topic today is going to be about the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, or what we would call, or what was labeled the Wheeler-Howard Act. See, as high as I am, you bitch ass nigga, I still can say these things very, very, sometimes I forget my words though that I'm about to say, because that's the greenish, but very, 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 what's the word? I can pronunciate my words very, very well as I sit here and say these particular things off the top of my head. I don't even have to go look at the sources. In many cases, I can read all of this shit off the top of my head, but I use the sources in order to give you. Let's go to some other ones. Hold on, let me go to some other ones. Like, okay, like right there, but that's pretty simple because that's whatever, right? Just the feathers or whatever. Let me find where they actually clothe. There's one clothe, simple designs. Let me find one in particular that's got a little bit of a pattern to it, though. I want to show you one. When we do patterns, I'm gonna show you. When we do decide to have some patterns, where the hell is it at? Here we go. Look at the pattern design on that cotton mantle right there. And they even said this in some of the document or books I just read. They said they had like a slight plaid-like design. So it's a simplified design. It's nice. It's got the stripes, 3 colors, just like I do still today, right? 3 colors, same kind of color coordination. Okay. Let's take a look at another one with some clothes on. That one over there too, to a degree, but they don't have a shirt. Or a cotton mantle. Let me show you one more, and then we'll get back to the what you call it. Look at that cloth going across her. It's got your line, a dotted line, another blue line, and it's just laid on that gold. Ever so elegantly, minimalistically, if that's a word, and minimalist, and I should say, and just nicely done. Okay, that's how luxury is. Your luxury brands are that way, right? When you go on, they're usually minimalist designs. Some of them, unless it's like some crazy Versace thing, but it's usually minimalist designs, but still dope and bold colors or bold print or just a bold branding or whatever. So let's get off of that. Right? We wasn't doing all these triangles and squares, and that's so simple. That's the most simplest shit you can do. Going to school and shit. All right. Appreciate y'all coming up in here, man. Let me just kind of start the cook. You said, right? Free. Let's see what y'all said here. What's up on code? That they were building at the time. And we were supposed.
I'm gonna have to get off him real quick because he got a live, so y'all gotta go to his live. I don't want to go on his live. Graveyards were never for the dead. They fenced off the gathering. Right. See? We did a lot more stuff. People used to barbecue in the graveyards and everything. The old world alphabet had 27 letters. They removed one, and no one knows what it was. I don't got time for that one. The exit plan. What's he talking about? Every family that controls America today has no record of wealth before it, right? Is that my guy, though? I'm looking for one guy. Oh, let's see what she talking about real quick. Because she be breaking down the women laws.
5 simple tricks to make her fall in love with you, the fastest way, and how to keep her engaged in a long-term relationship so that you can sustain a long-term relationship or a marriage. We will be learning on most of the time what you're supposed to do and not the characters of women, because this is what you gentlemen have been asking for. Now we go back again. Now, in every stage, you have to act in a specific way and treat her in a specific way so that maybe she can get attached. She can invest in you emotionally. This way she falls in love.
This is why, so if y'all notice, Africans, right? They is really in a lot of these places like podcasts, like doing what I'm doing, and they breaking down a lot of shit. And we like, how the fuck is these Africans knowing how to break this shit down? One, less distractions in their life. And the main entertainment in their life are people. Number 2 is in Africa. This is one thing about African. I was watching this movie, Africans. It was probably like a vlog. I don't know. But the Africans was like, yo, when you grow up, where you want to go? And it was like London. And then another one was like America. And another one was like Asia. And another one was like, and then, but you ask like black people where you want to go when you grow up, they be like California, Africa, maybe. I don't know. But you see what I'm saying? Like, but all of these, and plus Africans, they be going so many different places and then coming back and telling everybody about what it is. Whereas though we not going, like, I don't have a homie that go to Canada on holiday or London on holiday. Like, you know what I mean? My people that's Jamaican and anybody that I know that's from them places, they might go one time in their life. Maybe once they get older, they might start going more. So that's why Africans can sit up here and be talking about this and all these people and things like that, because that's their nature in a way. And they're also the main people that can turn into any other type of people that can go places and, you know, become locals, become one with the locals type job. So, what y'all think about that? Women with high interest will appear. Let's see this one now.
Now, this is just the sweetest wallet I've ever seen.
So I just want to let y'all know that with the African stuff, because y'all might be saying, and then a lot of times some of them is AIs. She not AI, that's why I like her.
Good when they are around you, because those are the feelings that she is experiencing, but she's not really in love. Being in love means she is attached. She can only get attached to you if you have the best game for her, that she is emotionally investing. So you don't reciprocate with the same niceness, kindness, and being good to her. That is you having leverage and taking away all her leverage. This is when she will fall in love, by getting attached. So how she feels about you has nothing to do with her falling in love with you. Her falling in love with you is her getting attached. Her getting attached, it is an emotional investment on a lady's side when she is knowing you, dating you, and sleeping with you. But feeling about you, it is a situation that can happen. It is just a scenario. Okay? And these situations can change everything that she thinks she knows about you. So feelings are situational. And there is nothing you can do about this because you can't control it. The perception comes after the feelings and the experience of it with you. How do you handle it? It's just a situational thing. They perceive and think that they know you after they have already experienced that scenario with you, and few days have actually passed. You just need to be convinced that you actually have a relationship with this lady, and there is momentum.
All right, basically what she just said there, and nobody understood, was saying, like, it doesn't matter if a woman is going up or down. If a woman is with you, then she's with you. Don't fall straight for her traps, but don't just kick her the fuck out. So, like, if she complaining about being hungry, but she don't know what she want to eat, don't sit there like, what do you want to eat? Do you want French fries? Do you want noodles? No, just go out, go get a burger and fucking get a smoothie, give it to her. If she hungry, she'll eat that shit. If not, then it is what it is. And if she don't want it, then what she's going to do is she's going to not take it, be mad, go upset. You don't never know what I want, blah, 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 blah. And then when she sit down and think about that shit or tell somebody about it, she's going to like, damn, I was drawn. And then when they see you, they're gonna be, oh, babe, how are you? Da-da-da-da-da. That's how I go. But if you be all, boo, what you want? Da-da-da, then when she goes to her homegirl, she's gonna be like, man, this nigga was just bugging me, kept asking me what it was. Like, I just wanted you to get the hell up out of here. By me saying I wanted some food meant to go out and go get something to eat. Don't text me every 5 minutes. Just go and find something to eat, bring it back. Ain't that how men did back in the day? They go kill something and bring it back. They don't ask the woman what they want to kill. Something like, they be killing men. Don't even be knowing it. And we be thinking that we trying to do extra. So all she's saying is don't do extra. Just do you. And everybody gonna like it. Look at KP, the artist degree. He got some damn eye drops. I'm not buying nobody eye drops. KT. But if I buy anybody eye drops, it would be KT's eye drops, but not KTA eye drops. Let's see what these KTA eye drops is. It's not even real. It's honey. Whoa. Yo, he is strong. I feel like we good. Yo, I love KT, the artist degree. What the hell is going on? What? If it's a medicine, I'm buying that shit. Because it's a medicine that's going to make a little mini KT run through your blood cells. I want that. And if it's a movie or a show, what is KT doing? What else? What was that? That was 20 hours ago. So if I go to his page, you're not going to have nothing new. What do people say about this? Okay, so it is the power didn't just stay in my veins. It rolled to the rivers through my blood, rewriting my DNA from the inside out. Activated melanin fused with copper. Go. I'm not buying that, man. But thank you. I'll probably gift one to my homie. And then when they make it time to get rid of herpes, damn. He trying to kill people. Centers decoded. 11 months ago, herpes and centers decoded. I didn't even know about centers 11 months ago. How did he know? Nectar Masterclass. The power of melanin, a conversation. All right. KT bugging though. That joint's crazy. But I think y'all here, I told the public orphans, the records tell a different story. I'm looking for a certain person. I should go find some Dolo right now. I don't think Dolo like it when people do that, so I'm not going to do it. If anybody else don't like it, then I won't do it too. He a good guy. Forced rations, 25 beautiful. I don't want to hear that. And don't forget how they said that the Knights were really
Listen, it's called Connect Team, and it's insane. I don't do schedules or timesheets manually anymore. And it works? Oh, like you...
Coach, if you working your ass off, stressing your ass off, or planning your ass off, but still don't seem to get nowhere, it has nothing to do with willpower or discipline. It's usually an emotional pattern running in the background that's quietly messing with your decisions and follow through. And those emotional blind spots are the real reason you remain stuck. I'm hosting a live 90-minute workshop where me and Romani help you identify the patterns that's holding up your progress. And we get you clear on the next steps you need to take so your emotional blind spots never cripple your potential again. You want to work with some real ones? Link is in the description. Now let's get back to the story. Instead of letting my homie's daughter sit in the front with the paddle, battle, I told her something like, let Brave, my son, sit in the front because his legs ain't long enough to brace himself in the back, which is partially true. But it wasn't the real reason. The real reason was simple. Brave had already called it. He was already sitting there. He already had the paddle. The only reason we came back to the dock was because of his life vest. That seat was already his. I just didn't explain it clearly. So she took the paddle in the back seat. She was fine, but I wasn't. As a man who's been tortured by fuzzy communication for most of my life, I'm determined not to do the same to the people in my life, especially the little ones. I gave all partial truth and a reason to feel slighted. It wasn't the whole story, and somewhere in my chest I knew it. Even while everybody was laughing, even while the day was going great, even though she ended up riding and paddling in the front multiple times, that moment stayed with me like body odor. That's the thing about intuition. It don't care if the situation resolves itself. It doesn't care that nobody's crying. It just keeps sending the same signal. Something wasn't right. Something wasn't in alignment. So later that day, the kids had a hip-hop dance class together. And after class, I pulled my homie aside and asked him if I could speak to his daughter. He said yes. I said, guide me through this shit. I got down to her level, looked her in her eye, and told her the truth. I said, the real reason I asked you to sit in the back for the first ride on the kayak earlier today is because Brave had already called the front seat. That was his spot. The only reason we even came back to the dock was because I wasn't comfortable with how his life vest was fitting him. That was it. I should have said that in the moment. I didn't communicate it clearly, and I wanted to come back and tell you the real reason. She smiled, said thank you, and ran off to play, but her dad stopped her. He said, hold up. Did you hear that? She said, yeah. Did you say thank you? She said, yeah. Then he asked her, does this feel safe to you right now? She thought about it, said, yeah. He said, do you know why? She didn't have the words for it yet. She shook her head. And he said, you see that feeling you have right now? How does it feel? She said, it feels really good. And he said, when we talk to you about safety, this is what we mean. This is what it feels like. Remember this feeling. She was like, got it, and ran off. I stood there thinking about what I just witnessed, wondering what just happened. Because what I did didn't feel like a big deal to me. I just knew I hadn't been straight with a kid and wanted to clean that up. That was it. But watching him use that moment to anchor something in her, that hit different. So I asked him what that was really about. And he broke it down. He said, I'm all about teaching my kids to tune into their body, not just their head, their body. Because nobody taught us that. It was always a thinking process, never a feeling process. What is intuition? What is nervous system regulation? Nobody in our houses was teaching us that. So he tried to find moments where his kids can experience life as a feeling, not just something they intellectualize their way through. He even connected it to dance class. He said, you'll notice in dance class, some of my daughter's moves get very slow, like your merch sales. He always cracking on me about that because don't nobody buy my shit. But he said him and his wife have been encouraging his daughters to close their eyes and freestyle, abandon form, and feel the music, not just follow the routine, not just follow the beat, but experience the vibrational impact the music has on their body. If you ain't never heard this before, don't feel bad about it. But nobody taught us that the discomfort we feel in certain places or in certain exchanges was data. My man grabbed my shoulder and said, in that moment, when you took the time to give my daughter that clarity, I could see it on her face, a smile I don't see often, not even with family. He said, at first, I thought she was laughing at your big ass teeth, but nope, it's that warm smile she gets when somebody is affirming what she's feeling inside. He knew she felt safe and respected before she had words for it. So he stopped her. He brought her attention to it because the nervous system is sending us signals all day, telling us what to move toward, telling us what to get away from. But nobody taught us to pay attention to it. And that landed for me. I started thinking about what it felt like growing up in a house where certain things couldn't be questioned, where if you push back, if you ask for clarity, if you challenge what an adult said, it led to volatility. Somebody raising their voice, somebody getting smacked. That's why I'm always flinching like a stray dog in the hood to this day. And over time, you stop expecting anything different. You stop expecting people to be transparent with you. You stop expecting accountability when somebody gets it wrong. Because in your environment, your emotions, your intuition was seen as an inconvenience rather than a priority. So your nervous system adjusts to the absence of clarity or emotional reassurance. And that absence becomes your baseline. Let me not bother nobody with my curiosity or my need to understand clearly. By the way, now would be a good time to hit that like button if you like something. And if you motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. But the only way this channel grows is if you share this with your folks. Pause. If they black, 57-year-old man tells you this, please listen. I've carried my childhood perspectives into adult situations more times than I'm comfortable admitting. Not because I'm stupid, but because that's what I was calibrated to accept from birth. We accept what we become used to. Familiarity can feel safe even when it's unaliving your ass. Look at all these Stockholm Syndrome having Negroes. And here's what most of us learn to do instead of following our intuition. We learn bravado as a survival skill. We walk into a room that don't feel right, and instead of pausing or letting our body tell us what it's registering, we puff up. Instead of honoring our intuition, we turn on, get louder, and make the discomfort look like confidence, while our nervous system still sending the original signal. Abort mission, scrap up, pull out. Now you getting robbed and corn on the cob by the homies or the girl you met on the job. Your intuition was warning you, but you was too busy performing, engaging your ego, prioritizing your vices to receive what your intuition was trying to tell you. I'm probably going to get blacklisted for saying this. In fact, I'm already blacklisted, which is why I only get subscribers when people share my content. But my point is, don't let this evil system of Satanism convince you that your pride is more important than your peace, or that prestige is more important than purpose, that status is more important than sanity. And whatever you do, don't let these cannibalistic devils disconnect you from your God-given intuition. Here's where niggas get defensive as a linebacker, but a lot of us now glorify dysfunction. We earn a living writing songs, books, and movies about it. We've used technology to showcase and monetize the worst aspects of us as a people. And that's only aided in normalizing shit we shouldn't even be tolerating. For instance, the relationships you stayed in too long because you didn't want to deal with the discomfort of change. Jobs that was eating you alive from the inside out. Environments and institutions you continue to subject yourself to despite their deteriorating sense of safety. Rooms you kept entering even though something in you knew every single time that you wasn't safe there. But nobody taught you that the discomfort was data. So you overrode it repeatedly until you couldn't even detect it no more. Shit, some of us had to override it for survival. That's not a coincidence. That's by design. They feed you, raise you, reward you, and penalize you based on the merit system of a culturally displaced, spiritually misaligned, manufactured value system that ain't got shit to do with you. And your intuition always knew something was off, like a Mormon's condom. Some of the most self-defeating rhetoric I hear is talking about they was built for this. You ain't built for this. You was bred, sedated, and socially engineered for this. Physically, mentally, and financially impaired for this. That one statement proves you ain't even aware
of this. All right, that was enough of that. Goodness gracious, that man talks. I watch like one of them Jones a year. It used to be like a show, right? It used to be a show called, and it was a movie called Tijuana Jackson. Now, there's nothing wrong with him. I love him. He there was a time when I listened to him for like all day. But yeah, he was like a show. He been doing this YouTube thing. Basically, what I do, I get from him and my man, the other boy. But basically, everything that he do, even in the real world, like as in movies, he still be filming his behind the scene, his vlogs and stuff, and he'll be like doing interviews like way before other people was doing it, but with people. Like if he doing a movie with Kevin Hart, he'll get Kevin Hart to sit down with him while he's in his other character. And oh my gosh, like he's very, very dope, very think outside the box type of person to bring you all of these things. And that's why right now when he's dressed in all of this, he's like 3 different levels of a person. He's the guy that just got out of jail, that know all of these things to teach you.
Wait, oh no, this ain't some basic motivational rant. Everything I'm finna tell you is either based in science, psychology, or biology, you heard? Sometimes we get stuck in this cycle where we know what needs to get done, but we just can't make it happen. Spoiler alert, that ain't laziness. In most instances, that's called functional freeze. It's a state where your nervous system is in lockdown, but your brain is still out there running them streets like a paraplegic OG. Imagine your emotional, neurological, and psychological systems all working together like a built-in kill switch. It ain't got nothing to do with laziness. It ain't got nothing to do with willpower. So let's talk about these 7 things that trick you into thinking you lazy. In most instances, there's a reason that you are not moving forward. There's stuff that nobody ever really told you about. Reason number 1 you might think you lazy is because, like a lot of us creative people, you might struggle with executive function. Or maybe you don't even know what executive function means. But executive function is like your brain's manager. It helps you make plans, stay organized, and knock out your to-do list. It is what helps you solve problems and stay focused on your tasks. But many of us, myself included, have a harder time with this because of how our brains is wired. Especially if you're dealing with ADHD, anxiety, or depression. Just look at folks like Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Simone Biles, Albert Einstein, Michael Phelps, Charles Schwab. They all have ADHD. The difference between them and us is they got proactive about understanding their disorder. What they did was they focused on their strengths and built support for their weakness. That's what you're supposed to do when you take your dreams and goals seriously. I've had 2 psychiatric assessments in the last 10 months, and though I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, I definitely exhibit ADHD ADHD tendencies, yeah. And looking back on life, it didn't take long for me to realize that a lot of my successes in life came when I had a support system in place. It didn't have to be a big, expensive team, you know, sometimes just an assistant to help with executive functions like scheduling tasks and meetings and reminding me of dates and time. This way, I wasn't constantly switching between 2-3 different brain functions to get stuff done. For instance, without a team, I would go from coming up with an idea to planning how to execute it to doing it all in one sit. That's 3 completely different.
The new land.
And law enforcement gonna tell them it's not your house because what the papers say. Because that's what the papers say. The papers say it ain't your house. So they'll get you up.
What are you talking about?
And I'm not even joking with you.
Who is
It's
he?
nasty work, man. It's nasty work.
Oh shit, he live right now.
Shout out to this water.
I'm on his live while he live. I gotta get out of
Let
here.
me see if I can pull this up.
I can't
because
be.
this is disgusting. But we'll start with this one first. Hold on.
What are you talking about?
Let me see. Hold on. No, that's not what I wanted to do.
Can I be here? I feel bad. I gotta get the fuck out of here. What if he find out? Oh, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to go, yo. That's too weird. I can't be another person live, can I? I'm gonna have to look it up. Let me look it up. I'm just gonna ask it like this. Can you be live and alive? Like, I don't know. Can you use videos and music during a live? All right, let's see.
For asking this question. What I'm going to say to you all who may have questioned this yourself is that when it comes to your live streams, if you're using video content, audios, or actual music from artists, that you are using royalty-free options. This is going to make sure that you're not breaching any community guidelines, you're not using any music that you don't have license access to. Now, I'm going to give you a few suggestions of some music sources, royalty-free music sources that you can use. I'm going to put them on the screen now. So make sure that you go and check them out. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to ask. So thank you to Serenity.
That is whack, bro. That is so whack. It's like, I hate how they split it up to where as though I can't tell my story because somebody, I guess they need their money. Maybe it's the artist that do it. If it's the artist that do it, then okay. But if it's not the artist, it's company-wise, then I don't like that.
Can get you monetized on YouTube. Live streams are great for getting that 4,000 hours of watch time you need to get into the YouTube Partner Program. That's because the watch time you get from live streams actually counts towards your watch time hours needed for the YouTube Partner Program, unlike YouTube Shorts. No, instead for Shorts, you need 10 million views in the span of 90 days. So if you're struggling to reach monetization,
if you've ever walked along the Hudson River or through a harbor.
YouTube live streaming tip. If you're interested in doing live streams on YouTube, you should absolutely be going live to 0 viewers. Plan out your live stream ahead of time and then simply treat it like it's just a live video recording. If you give your stream a good title and a good thumbnail, it can get views long after it's done being a live stream. Let people know during the stream that you actually recorded this live so that they know that you're starting to do these, and hopefully the next time you go live, they'll be there to join you.
All right, what y'all think about that? I think we're doing it right.
You don't have to have 1,000 followers in order to go live on TikTok anymore. So one of my friends here on TikTok.
Lady, get out of here. Y'all hype for some TikTok. Y'all see her face? It was a pretty face, but she was hyped for TikTok. Don't say I came at her AI money. I don't got time. I need to be making one of these videos. Should we look up a video on how to make these videos? No, you know what? I want to make an app. Let's start making this app right now. This is how I would start making an app. I want to make an app. The new app changes everything. Free movie. No. The free app. Just creating new millionaires. No one's talking about. I'm not fucking trying to hear that shit right now. Best 3 free apps to watch movies on. Why everybody trying to watch movies on apps? That's what people doing? Everybody, all I said was free app, and everybody trying to watch movies for free. What is he doing for free? How to create a free app from scratch. This is what the fuck I'm talking about. That's what I need right there. That guy 2 months ago, about to go to him. But what is he doing for free? 11 free AI tools that'll replace your paid apps. I don't got time. Watch everything for free. No. And he got 67,000. The ultimate fire stick. Why? People got stuff to do. But see, the thing, and that's why people need fire sticks and stuff like that, because they got stuff to do and they don't got time to come home like how it used to be. You come home at 8 o'clock to watch your show. You don't got time like that. They don't want you to have time like that. But they do want when you have time to watch, so that way, so they make it so that way you can always watch at whatever time. 10 must have free. All right, so let's go to, there's only one of them so far from what I want. All right, so that's the one. No coding, how to create an app 2 months ago. That's this guy. So let me try to get another free app. Free app, watch football, free app builder, free app builder. All right, so let's see what they talking about. Here's the best 3 free no-code AI tools to build apps with no limit. Keyword SEO, no-code tools, best. All right. I gotta find one of these that look nice. I ranked every AI app builder in 2026. Don't choose wrong. That's 3 years ago, brother. I'm not messing with that. I'm gonna go with this boy right here.
How far can your apps go? Meet Base 44. Prompting.
Over 90% of AI app builders fail the moment you try to use them for something real. Now, they look great in demos, and then they fall apart once you push past just the basics. After testing the major platforms side by side using the same prompts and real build scenarios, and then burning through hundreds of dollars in credits, it became clear why so many people get stuck with half-working apps and wasted time. The issue is not your idea, and it's not your experience level either. Most of these tools are built to help you generate code or mockups, not to actually build, iterate, and ship a real application. And once you try to scale, the cracks show up fast. So in this video, I'm breaking these platforms down from weakest to strongest, showing where each one breaks once you move past the demo stage. And if you stick around until the end, you're also going to see the one tool that actually holds up when it's time to ship something real. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, to make this as fair and as square as possible, I'm not just going to go off vibes here or everything side by side. Base 44 ends up being the strongest all-around AI app builder we tested. It's fast, the output looks great, and the amount of built-in functionality you get without extra tools is hard to beat. So for anyone serious about building real production-ready apps, Base 44 stands out as a clear winner. And that puts Base 44 at a total score of 91 out of 100, taking the top spot. All right, so earlier I said most AI app builders fall apart once you try to do something real with them. And after putting every platform through the same prompts, the same builds and constraints, you can see exactly where they start to break. Some slow you down, some fall apart on quality, others look powerful until you actually try to ship. What mattered wasn't how they looked at the start, it was which one worked once things got real. And now, if you want to try any of these tools yourself, I've linked them all down in the description below. Thank you for watching and investing your time with me today. I really do appreciate it.
All right. So he basically worked for these niggas right here, and that's the one he said was best. You cannot trust this bull. Let's go look at some more of his stuff he got going on. Like, no, I mean, he knows what's up, though, but at the same time, wait, I don't know. I hate these cheesy. Y'all want me to get these cheesy ass Jones? Claudebot, full tutorial for beginners.
Claudebot is changing the game when it comes to AI assistance. Most AI tools today live in a browser. You open a tab, you ask a question, you get an answer, and once you close that tab, everything just kind of disappears. They're useful, but they don't really feel like assistants. And that's exactly the problem Claudebot is trying to solve. Unlike typical AI.
Man, I'm going to just go to